I'm an artist and an art teacher, and today I'm going to show you how to make a project that's really fun and that you can do on your computer. So here is the example. This project's really fun whether you're an experienced artist or a new artist, and whether you have any experience with photo editing and digital drawing or not. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to do a little bit of photo editing, use a little bit of Photopea, which is very similar to Photoshop, so those skills will transfer. You're going to learn a little bit about how to do digital drawings. It's really fun, and you're going to have a really cool creative project to show for it. So let's get started. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. When you're watching this video, you can either watch the whole thing all the way through and then try it yourself, or you can work alongside it and stop after each step and try it yourself and work along with me. So whatever works for you, do that, okay? If you find it useful, I'm always making more videos, so if you do like it, let me know. Tell me in the comments if there's anything else you want to learn, and please like, share, and subscribe, and let's get started. Okay, so here we are. We're going to get started. This is my first version that I made. I really love it. It was what got me excited to show it to my students. So I'm going to show you how to do it starting right now. We're going to go to photopea.com. It's a free photo editing website, and it is awesome. It's very similar to Photoshop, but you access it online. The one thing that you need to remember is that since it is a website, it is not automatically going to save, so you have to save it every once in a while so that if something were to happen, if your internet cuts out, something happens with your computer, you'll have a file saved. So I'm going to show you that right now. To do that, go to File, down to Save as PSD, and that's going to save it as a working file where you can still access all of your layers that I'm going to show you how to create. That way, if you need to take a break and come back to it, you can still work on it and edit all of the different layers. So just remember, even if you have to set yourself an alarm, every once in a while hit Save as PSD so you can keep on working on it later. If you don't, you're going to start all over. So the other thing I'll show you later on is how to export it as an image, so that's right below there. So to get started, I'm going to go up to the top on the left and hit File and New, and I'm going to call this Dina Joy 3 because I think it's the third version I'm going to make. And then there's a bar below it that says Create, and I'm going to hit that. So now we have our blank canvas, and the first thing we're going to do is build our layers and name them. That will make everything easier in the end. You'll see how it works. So to make a layer, we go up to the top where it says Layer, go down to New and Layer. I'll be saying Layer, New, Layer, and that's what I mean. So then on the layer on the right hand side, I'm going to double tap on it, and I'm going to say Color because we are going to want to have a layer with color on it. Then we're going to do another one, Layer, New, Layer, and then go over to our sidebar, and we are going to say Photo. This is where we're going to put our photo. We don't need to worry about it now, but we want a spot for it. Then we're going to start building our letter layers. So we're going to go Layer, New, Layer, and since my first letter is J, I'm going to call it J. And then if you look at mine, I have 3 letters and each letter is outlined. So each one of my letters is going to need to have an outline layer also. So Layer, New, Layer, and then call that one J outline. And then guess what I need to do next? I need to have a layer, new layer, and my next letter is O, so that one's going to be called O. You guessed it, Layer, New Layer, and that one is called O outline. Now I need 2 more layers. Layer, New Layer. This one is going to be Y for the last letter of Joy, and then of course Layer, New Layer. This one is Y outline. The reason we're naming them now is it will be so much easier to keep track of as we're working. So now we have everything set up, and we are going to choose a color. The reason I need a color background is because if I were to put white letters on a white background, I can't see the letters. So I'm going to make a layer that's whatever color I want so I can see my white letters if I choose white letters. And think of each layer as a piece of glass. So right now I'm on the color layer. I can see all the other layers, but I'm only touching the color layer. The way that we're going to select this whole thing is go up to the select button, which is next to layer, and then choose all. And now you see that there is a dotted line around the whole thing. That means the whole color layer is selected. Now I want to fill the whole thing in. So I want to choose the paint bucket option. You probably don't see the paint bucket option on yours, but if you look below, there's a paintbrush, and then 1, 2, 3 below it, there is a gradient tool, which goes from light to dark. Hidden in there is a paint bucket tool. So I'm going to press long on it, and now I see that there's a paint bucket tool, and I choose that, and now it looks like a little paint bucket tipping over. That's what I want. My color options here are black and white, and they are up on the side. Sometimes they're at the bottom. It doesn't matter where they are. That's your color options. And I see right now that I have black as the top one, so that if I draw right now, it would make it be black. But I want it to be red, so I'm going to tap on the black. And here, I can choose anywhere in this middle bar to choose the color I want. I want red, so I'm going to go in red, and then I can even click within there to find the perfect one. I think I like that one, so I'm going to hit OK. So now I have red chosen at the top, and I have my paint bucket highlighted. So now if I click in the middle, boom, it turns red. So now I have red, and I'm done with that. I'm not going to work on the photo layer yet. I'm going to bring that in later. So first thing I'm going to do is work on the J layer. I want to draw my J in white. So if you look, there is white here, and there's 2 little arrows between. If I do that, it swaps the colors. White's at top, and now I'm going to draw white. I don't want to fill the whole thing in white. I want to draw or paint with white. So I'm going to go up to the brush tool, which is 1, 2, 3 above the paint bucket tool, and choose brush tool. When I do that, that gives me options at the top where I can choose opacity and some other things, but I'm going to choose the second tool over that's a circle and a triangle. Click on it. I found that this is the easiest way to make letters. So I've had lots of other ways that are very difficult. Now if you look, this big circle means that's how big my paintbrush would be, and that's obviously too big. So I'm going to choose a size that I like. I think that looks good. Maybe I'll go a little bit bigger. So just choose what looks good to you, and then make sure that your paintbrush is highlighted. The color that you want, which I wanted white, is at the top, and that I have the right size brush that I want. So I have J highlighted, so that means I'm only drawing on the J layer right now. The cool thing about drawing with a big brush is it makes kind of a bubble letter without having to draw a bubble letter. So I'm going to make a J, and I think I want it to be a little bit different, so I'm going to hit Control Z or Command Z and undo that and go for it again. There, I like that. The other way I could do it if I didn't want to do the Control or the Command Z is go to Edit and Undo, and that would do the same thing. Now, I have the J. It looks wonderful. I am not going to draw O yet. I'm going to go to my O layer, and now I'm going to draw an O. So I really like that O, but I'm going to show you a trick. Now that I'm on the O layer, if I hit Command and then push down on the touchpad, I can move that wherever I want to. Now, so that's Command or Control, touchpad, move it where you want it. The other thing is, it is also kind of big. And I can see that for some reason the O is still selected there, so I'm going to hit deselect. But I'm on the O layer, and I want to make it a little smaller, but I don't want to have to redraw it. So here is something very, very cool. I go to Edit at the top, go down to Transform, over and up to Scale. Now, when I do that, if I hold down Shift and push on the touchpad, I can change the size, and I can put it where I want it. So there we go. And I think I'm going to make the J smaller too, so I'm going to go highlight the J, Go to Edit, Transform, up to Scale. Hold down the Shift and the touchpad, and that helps me keep it the same proportions. But lets me change the scale, the size of it. Okay, I'm going to show you one other really cool trick here. If you like the way that your letter looks, but you want to tip it one way or the other, there's one more cool trick. You go to Edit, down to Transform, but instead of choosing Scale, choose Rotate. Then you just push down on your touchpad and you can tilt it however you want to, which is pretty cool. Now my last thing is Y, so I'm going to go to Y. And I still have my paintbrush chosen, and I'm going to make a Y. So this is drawing digitally. And I kind of like that Y. I'm going to make it a little smaller though. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Scale. Hold down the Shift and the touchpad. Make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do the same thing with my O. Ooh, I like it. What do you guys think? Okay, so now you already went to Photopea.com, you made a new project, you created and named all your layers, you chose your color for your color layer, and then you wrote each letter on its own layer. Now I'm going to show you how to bring in an image, talk about where to bring in the image from, and how to change the color of your letters and outline it. After I show you that, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how to integrate the photograph and the letters together so that it all looks like it belongs together. So let's go on to the next step and then I'll see you in a minute. So now I'm going to show you how to bring in an image to your photo layer, and then also how to change the colors of your letters if you want to, and how to outline your letters. Before I show you how to bring in an image, I want to talk to you about where to get them from. So you don't want to just go to Google and choose any image, because those are the work of other artists. If you take your own photograph and bring it in, then that is one option. The other one is to use photographs that are not copyrighted, but you can go to two websites that were recommended to me by my graphic designer friends. One is called Unsplash. You go to unsplash.com/license, and I'll put that link in the description. But here you see they're all able to be downloaded and used for free for both commercial and non-commercial purposes, and you don't need permission, although attribution is appreciated. And again, this was recommended by several of my friends who are graphic designers and artists, and they use this website with great success. The other one is Pixabay. And Pixabay, I just looked up clouds because I thought that could be a cool background for somebody. These also are okay to use. The candy cane photo that I used, I went to iStock up here and I chose it. It was $12 for the license, but there was a coupon, so I paid a little bit over $8. Now I can use that and I am not breaking copyright. These are two websites that are good for you to use, both the Unsplash and the Pixabay, both highly recommended by my artist and graphic design friends, and then you know you're in the clear. So don't go to Google and search up whatever you want to. Go to these and find something that will work, or take your own photograph and bring it in. I have my own image already, but I am going to show you real quickly how to bring in your own. So for instance, if I go to Pixabay and say, I think this would be very cool to bring in, I double click this and I go free download, I download. So if I want to, which is very nice to do, I can donate to that image author, to the artist. It says crediting isn't required, but linking back is greatly appreciated and allows the image authors to gain exposure. So I'm doing this for an example, but again, images by Bessie from Pixabay, and you can copy this link and include it if you post it on Instagram or social media or wherever it is that you use your image, and you can donate. Now I have this download down here. I'm going to put it in QuickTime, and then I'm going to label it Tree Pixabay Bessie. So I remember where I got it from. And also, I like to screenshot this sort of thing. I'm on a Mac, so I can go Shift Command 3 and it saves that whole page. Later on, I can go back to it. So that's how you would get an image. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to bring in the image. So I'm going to bring in my image now, but I want to really see how that picture, how that photograph is going to interact with my letters. So I'm going to change the opacity so I can see through them a little bit. So I clicked on the J layer and then I click on opacity and turn it down just a bit so I can see through it. I'm going to do the same thing with my O. Click on the O, go up to opacity right above it, turn it down so I can see through it a little bit, and then also with the Y. This is going to allow me to see how that image will work with the photograph. Now I'm going to make sure I click on photo and I'm going to go to open and place. And I'm going to choose my iStock candy cane picture that I purchased. And it needs to be bigger, so I'm going to slide it up. And I'm going to hit Shift and the touchpad and make it a little bit bigger. And now I want to see where things overlap. I want this candy cane to look like it's wrapping around the bottom of the Y. So maybe like that. I like that. I like this going right over part of the O and the J. I like this candy cane going over there, and I like this one over that. So I like how that looks. So now I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm going to go and increase the opacity for each of my letters again now that I know that I have it where I want it. And now that I look at it, I realize I would really like my letters to be red. So let me show you another shortcut. If I go to my J, I'm on the J layer. I'm going to switch the color so the red's on top. I'm going to go to the paint bucket. I'm going to click on my J. Boom, it's red. Then I'm going to do the same thing. It's already set with the paint bucket in the red. So I'm going to just click on each letter. So now I brought in my photo to the photo layer. I changed my letters to red. Now I'm going to show you how to outline everything. I've got my outline layers. I'm going to go to J outline. But what I see is I want my J to overlap and I can't tell where that is. I'm going to go to the O and I am going to hit the little eye icon next to it. So for right now it's invisible. It's still there, but it's just not in my way. So I'm going to go to J outline and I'm going to zoom in a lot. You can zoom in either if you're using a touchpad by making your fingers go wider and closer together, or you can go to the view and zoom in and out. All right, so now I am going to do outline. So I go back to my paintbrush, but now I want my paintbrush to be black. So I'm going to click on the white one and I'm going to choose black at the bottom and hit OK. And then do swap colors so that the black's at the top. You can see this is too big of a brush to paint with. I've tried out different ones and I like the number 12, so I'm just going to stick with that, but you could try it out and see what works for you. So I'm going to zoom in very closely so I can really get details. And as you can see, when I drew, it was really a big round circle making my letter, so I can kind of even that out if I want to. I don't have to follow along exactly with the curves. I'm going to speed this part up while I go around my J. Okay, now I have my J done and I have outlined it on the J outline area. The reason why we have to have an outline area is because if I need to erase part of it, if I don't have its own layer, I will also erase part of the J. But if I have its own layer, then I'm only playing with the outline. The other thing I want to show you is if you need to move your image around and you can't get the mouse or the touchpad to work when you're in Zoom, go to the hand and then you can move it around wherever you want to. The next thing I want to do is make the O visible again. So I click the I next to the O, so I click the O, but I also want to be on that layer so I can make it translucent just for a minute. And the reason I want to make it translucent is I want to zoom in and I want to choose the erase button, which is above the paint bucket, because I want to erase the part of the O that is covering up the J, because I want the J to look like it's on top. This will give it the illusion of depth. And I'm going to zoom in even more so I can really see it. So I'm going to erase the part of the O that is over the J so that it will look like the J is on top of the O. I made a couple areas where I erased part of the red. So I went back to, I'm going back to my brush tool and just filling those in because I want to make sure I have good craftsmanship. All right, I've done that. Now I'm going to zoom back out and I'm going to make the O normal 100% opacity again. Now you can see that it looks like it's over that. Now I'm going to make my Y disappear by getting rid of the I there. And I'm going to trace this O with the same black outline. But I have to remember to be on the outline layer for the O. I'm switching so my black is on top and I make sure I'm on my 12 number for my outline because that's the same thickness that I used for my other outline. You choose what you think looks nice. And I'm going to do this and speed it up for you. Let's check it, fit to area, so we can see the whole thing, and I think that looks lovely. Now I'm going to go to the Y and click the I button so I can see it. So I'm going to do the same thing and go to the Y, change the opacity. Now if your letters are not overlapping, you wouldn't need to do this step, but I really love how it looks overlapping, so I'm going to do it. So I'm going to zoom in and just erase the part of the Y that's covering up the outline of the O. All right, go back, take a look, and then change my opacity back to 100. Now I'm going to do the outline for my Y. I'm almost there. Go to the Y outline, zoom in. I gotta choose my brush. Make sure it's still black, still the same size that I want, and go ahead and outline it. All right, I'm all the way outlined, and I see when I look at the Y, there's one little speck of white. So I'm gonna switch back to my red and just fill in that little tiny bit there. Okay, so now we have all of the major steps done. Okay, so now we brought in our image, we changed the colors of our letters, we outlined everything, and we are ready for the last finishing touch, where we are going to make it look like the letters are mixed in with the candy canes. So follow along for this last little step and you will love it. Let's go. Okay, so here we are on the last few steps to make this look amazing. So if you look here, this is the difference now, is that on this one, my candy canes look like they are on top of the letters in some parts. So what we're going to do is do the same thing. In order to be able to see what we're doing, we're going to make our letters translucent again. So we're going to make sure we're on the Y layer and make it so that we can see through it. This is going to help us decide what to do for our next step. Same thing for the O. Make it so that we can see through it. And the J. All right, now I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to look, but to me it seems very clear that this one could easily look like it's on top. I'm going to take it one step at a time, but I'm going to start with this one. So I'm going to zoom in, and what I'm going to do is that's a J, so I'm going to go to the J outline, and I'm going to go to my eraser tool. And I am going to erase the part of the outline that is where I want my candy cane to be. So I'm going to very carefully erase that. And then I'm going to go to my J itself and do the same thing. And the neater you are with this, the better your craftsmanship is with it, the more convincing it will look. So I want to be in very close so I can really see those edges. All right, let's see what that looks like. All right, now let's make our opacity for our J back to 100 so we can see what that looks like. Look at how cool that looks. It looks like the candy cane is right on top of the J. We have one other step, but I want to do the rest of these first. So I'm going to speed this up and you can watch me do mine and then you can do yours. Then the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is add some shadows so it really looks like the candy canes are hovering over. And I'm probably going to add some shadows where the letters are over top of each other as well. But go ahead and watch. I'm going to go through. Just remember you have to be on the right layer. So I have to go to my letter outline, erase that, and then to my letter and erase that. So I'm going to go back to my opacity so I can see what else I want to do and then get working and come back when I have all this done. All right, now I really like how this looks. I don't see any place else where I can make it look like the candy canes above or below it. So the last thing I'm gonna do is show you how to make the shadows so everything looks like it belongs there. Then you are all done. Okay, so now we erased all the parts of the letters and the outlines where we want it to look like the candy canes are going over top of the letters. And now I'm going to show you one last thing where we add a little bit of shadow below letters and candy canes so that it really looks like they exist in the same space. So let's go ahead and try that. All right, so just to be on the safe side, I am going to save it as a PSD again, and then I'm going to add shadows. So we have been adjusting our opacity of the whole layer over in the middle on the right hand side. What we're going to do now is we are going to add shadow by choosing brush, and then we are going to choose our brush size. Let's try 24, but we can always go up larger. And my shadow is going to be black, so make sure you have black at the top, and again, if you don't, you can choose it by clicking on the top color and choosing black. I have the brush chosen. I have the black at the top, which is what I want. I chose my brush size, but if I go over 2 spots, there's opacity there, and that's not for the layer. That's for the opacity of the brush that you are going to be drawing with. So I'm going to take it down to about 20%. That's going to be like I'm using watercolor. It doesn't have to be exactly 20%, but something around there will be good. Now what I want to do is, I think the light is kind of coming from the top. So on the bottom sides of things, I'm going to add a little shadow. So I have to make sure I'm drawing my shadow on the right layer. So for the J, I'm going to do it in my outline layer. You could make another layer for the shadow if you want to. Do you see how when I draw it right now, it is kind of see-through, sort of translucent, but it's kind of harsh. So I'm actually going to choose this one over here that says soft. And then I'm still going to use the same brush size, 24, and I'm going to use the same opacity. But this is going to make it look more like a shadow and less like an outline. So I'm going to go here and just create a bit of a shadow. And it's okay if it gets onto your candy cane or onto your letter, because this is your outline layer. So if it's on the candy cane, I can just hit the erase option and then just clean up my candy cane where the shadow accidentally got on there. So that's the beauty of using the outline layer. There. Let's see how that looks. Fit to area. Do you see how that looks like a shadow now? So I'm loving that. And then I could extend it more if I wanted to. I could adjust the opacity to even lighter if I wanted to be even less of a shadow. The other thing I could do is I could make it a little bit darker, closer to, I'm going to keep all that the same, but I'm going to change the opacity a little bit higher. So then I could take a little bit darker opacity and just make a little bit more intense of a shadow right by where the candy cane would be touching the J. And then again, clean up the candy cane. So hit my eraser and just clean up the shadow so it's just the shadow and it's not on the candy cane. So I have a lighter shadow around the bottom of the candy cane, and then I made a little bit more intense one closer. And you can experiment with what looks good to you. I used somewhere around 20% opacity for the first shadow, and then for the second one, it was about 40%. But you can also just layer your lower opacity. So if you would rather just keep it at your 19, 20, 21% and just layer it, those shadows do stack up. So let's see how that looks. I love it. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the other ones, and I'm also going to create a shadow where the J overlaps the O and where the O overlaps the Y, and then also in a few spots I'm going to make shadows, not on the top, but since I'm imagining my light's coming from the top, I'm going to make a little bit of shadows around the bottom parts of my letters also. Nothing big, just enough. Nobody else will probably notice that that's what I've done, but I'll know and you'll know, and it's going to make everybody feel more like it's actually integrated into the space. So I'm going to go ahead and do it and speed it up for you. So here, again, I'm doing sort of the bottom parts of things, so I might not put a shadow on the top here, and that's still on the O, so I'm going to keep it on there. So I'm going to still do my brush tool, make sure I'm on my soft brush, which I am. Take my opacity down to 20 for my first pass. But I'm not going to put a shadow up here because I'm pretending the light's coming from there. So I'm going to just do it just a little bit right there. And then increase the opacity. And then do another closer pass. And then clean up the paint, or then clean up the candy cane. And now you can see if I had put the shadow on the top, it wouldn't look realistic because all the shadows are going to be on the bottom for mine. So if I had put a shadow on the top, it would be obvious that I had done it. But since I'm putting all of them on the bottom because the light is shining that way, that will look better and more realistic. Let's see, I'll finish up my letters. I'll speed it up, and if you want to slow it down to see it, you are welcome to. I think that's a little bit dark, so I'm going to take my eraser, make the opacity a little lighter, and then just lighten it up just a little bit. All right, there we go. The finishing touches. I love how it looks, and hopefully you do too. But there you go. We have our artwork. Again, I've been saving it as a PSD, and you want to save that because if you want to go back in and change it or try a different picture or anything, you can as long as you have the PSD version of it. If you want to later on open it up and work on it some more, go to File, Open up your most recent PSD. Then your layers are still there and you can keep on working on it or try a different picture or whatever you want to. Now, in order to use this image, you also have to have it be a JPEG or a PNG. I usually do both. So you go to File, Export as a PNG. When you save it, it looks big, but that's just because that's how big it actually is. So you could enlarge it quite a bit. And then I do the same thing, File, Export as, and JPEG. That way you can print it out, you can upload it to social media, you can text it to somebody, you can send an email, and they'll be able to see it as a picture with all these layers together. So if you click on that JPEG, there it is. That's the finished version, all done. And make sure you name all your files because that makes it easier to keep track of. I hope that you really enjoy this and make one for yourself because it is awesome. So there you have it. You have your own project. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit about photo editing and digital drawing, a little bit about shadows and overlapping. I hope you enjoyed it and thank you so much for stopping by. If you do try it, let me know in the comments how it went, and if you have any questions, let me know there also. And please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you have a great day and I love you. Bye.